Right, cool. There's been a big reaction to Scott Brown's comments after the Rochdale game that one or two players in the Cheltenham squad have admitted that they're not trying. What's your initial reaction to that?
I think, like everybody associated with Club, John, fans and directors, there was one of dismay, disappointment, upset that highly paid professional footballers who are doing a job that most people would die for, who are doing a job that every boy aspires to do, who are doing a job which they should love, openly admits in front of their colleagues and their peers that they're not training as hard as they should be. I just don't understand the mindset of someone who openly admits in front of his fellow teammates that they're not trying, and admits to the manager that they're not trying, and therefore it is incredulous, really. I don't think I've come across a situation like it, and I commend Scott Brown. I think he's done the club a service. I think it speaks volumes for his passion for Cheltenham Town Football Club, his passion to work hard and to be a winner. And you could see from the interview he was really upset about those admissions. It's now, and I would say actually, Scott Brown epitomises what I want at Cheltenham Town Football Club. I want players who are passionate about the club, want to play for the club, want to play for their colleagues, want to play for their manager, which is the sort of spirit we've had under many teams here, and which is why we are being successful, because we've had close-knit squads who love and understand the club, respect it, and give it their all. And we had the Legends evening last week, John, you will know, we had players coming back to the club because they loved the club. They had huge success here, but they had huge rewards here and great memories here. And I would struggle to think that many of the current team will be able to look back on this season and think this has been a great season. I feel a passion for Cheltenham. And I think one of the problems is that nowadays full-time professional footballers, they're here today and they're gone tomorrow. Scott Brown is clearly the exception. 10 years with the club, and that is fantastic. And I would like nothing more than to sign the new contract which is on the table for him, and hope he does, because, as I say, he epitomises what Cheltenham Town were when Mark Yates was a player and a captain, when Neil Howard was a player, and Steve Cottrell. All that era is what Scott Brown epitomises, and we need another 11 like him. The issue for the club now is dealing with those two players. Because really, it's one of my concerns actually, John, is all the other players in the squad are being tarred with the same brush, because no one knows who the two are. So other players might be thinking, well, actually, perhaps fans think it's me. And so other players who actually were training very hard, the bulk of them, all of them, bar two, are being painted with this not trying brush now. So that is something we've got to deal with, and the only way of dealing with that is by naming these two players. And I think we probably will have to do that at some stage, but we can't do that until we've gone through due process. So the due process will be that the players will have to face a disciplinary hearing at the club. We will need to convene that fairly shortly. Then we'll go through that disciplinary process, and then obviously the outcome of that will maybe a warning. It may be the contract is cancelled, and maybe if it's a renewal, that we don't offer them a renewal, because clearly we don't want players at the club, we don't want to be at the club, and don't want to work for the manager or work for the club. They're just being disrespectful to everybody concerned. Yeah,
a lot of this will divide opinion. Some people say it's the manager's job to make sure the players care. Some people say, well, the manager's just been let down by players who, he can't make the players care about everything they're doing. So what's your view on that? Is it the players letting the manager down, or is it the manager losing control of the players?
There will be an element of fans out there who will watch blame Mark Yates because they want to blame Mark Yates for everything at the football club that goes wrong. This is clearly, in my view, we have two footballers. We're not talking about youngsters. We're talking about players who have been around, and it's difficult for me to say things, but players who are contracted players who are getting good money. They should not need to be told by the manager to train at 110%. There should be an expectation when you're a professional footballer that you act and conduct yourself professionally at all times, and whether that's on the training field, whether it's on the team bus, or whether it's on the pitch. So I don't blame the manager at all for this. It takes a certain type of player to say what they've said and not to perform. They need to look at themselves because they have got the problem. It's not Neil and it's not Mark. That's my strong view about this. Clearly, that's probably all I want to say on that subject. It is the players that need to look at themselves.
Yeah, and are you confident from speaking to Mark and from players, or have you seen around the club, that the vast majority of the players are absolutely 100% committed to the club and Mark Higgs?
I think, John, if you were at Mansfield, only a week ago, you saw a thoroughly hard-working, professional performance and a great away win. I think if I'd have a concern that Mark may have lost a dressing room, or there was gross discontent amongst the whole squad, if actually we've been performing poorly week in, week out. I think the problem this season has just been one of consistency. We've seen some great performances, and you don't get many more committed physical teams than Mansfield. We went there and we won deservedly so. We went to Exeter. We got a point we should have won. Exeter beat Scunthorpe yesterday. So, I just think for whatever reason we just haven't been able to get that consistency week in, week out. We can play really, really well at times, but then we can play very, very poorly at times too. And I think if Mark, if anybody knew the answer to consistency, they'd be a genius, because let's face it, teams at all levels, even Barcelona, occasionally lose games. We have got a problem. We've got a problem with giving away leads. We know that, and we have to look at that and learn from that and do things differently next year. Now that might mean we need to look at fitness levels. It might mean we need to look at some sort of sports psychologists coming in. Let's face it, most sports people now have psychologists to talk them through things. It's a big thing being a professional sportsman. You're in the public eye and you're going out there to perform week in, week out, and there's a lot of pressure on that. Perhaps we need to give more focus to that. Every football club in the Premiership will have a sports psychologist on board giving advice. Every Olympian will have a sports psychologist giving them advice. Actually, I think it's just important to get your mind right as it is to get your physical fitness right, and perhaps we need to look at that as well. So I think there are things that we as a club need to look at, but there's no excuse at all for players not giving 110% on the training ground or on the pitch. I don't see many examples this year of lack of effort on the pitch. So I'm not sure how endemic a problem this is. We're talking about two players. I don't know whether this has happened before. I'm not aware that it's happened before. So we've got to be careful we don't exaggerate it. Let's deal with it. Let's talk to these two players, and if necessary, we'll strip them out, we'll get rid of them, and we'll move on. And we'll get players who want to play for Cheltenham Town, like Joe Harris, and like the youngsters who are signing on contracts. They want to play for Cheltenham Town. They are hungry, and perhaps that is part of the answer. Hungry players.
Cool.